Hi everybody, this is Victoria. Welcome back to another new episode of Discovering Art Together. And today we're going to do something special with this episode because we are going to do a artist analyzation. So we are going to take a look and have a deeper dive into WanJin Kim's hand paintings and drawings. So we're going to discover and kind of uncover and see what we can learn from his paintings and whether if it's lifelike or if it has a more surrealistic and representational and more imaginary aspect to it. So if you guys are ready, let's get started. So before we start off, I want to thank one of the commenters and fans that was commenting on my YouTube channel on the video of Masters of Painting Hands by Ingres and Bougreau. So if you guys want to take a look at that, that video is going to be on either one of the sides over here, so you can check out that video if you want to learn more how to master painting hands and learn from the old masters. So they mentioned about WanJin Kim, and I was really curious of what their artworks and paintings looked like, and it was really interesting. So that's why I decided to do a special video specifically on him, and we're going to take a deeper look to see how he painted and also drew and colored his hand artworks, and we're going to kind of dive deeper into see like how he used his techniques and also just kind of analyzing what he did with his hands and also focusing on what kind of lighting and what kind of color makes it realistic or not. And before we do that, please feel free to go check out WanJin Kim's artworks. You can go follow him on Willie's Art on Instagram, and I will put the link in the description below so you guys can check it out. So the first question we want to ask yourself is WanJin Kim's hands lifelike looking or is it not? So let's go ahead and take a look at a various of different paintings and drawings that he did to see whether it looks lifelike or not, and also why does it look lifelike and why does it not. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at some of the paintings that he did. So he did two types of art. So it was kind of a little bit confusing because the Dennis Sophia 847 mentioned that he did paintings of it, but when I looked at his art portfolio and stuff, he had a lot of artworks that I was like, okay, this feels like colored pencils, and they were. So he did multiple different artworks in different mediums, so that's why I was slightly a bit confused, where it had like that colored pencil feeling to it, and I was like, oh, is this a painting? But like once you start kind of dig and try to discover and learn a little bit more about the artist, you kind of notice like, okay, he used slightly bit different mediums, and this would also kind of have an effect on whether if the hands look lifelike or not. But at the same time, you can do lifelike hands with any medium as long as you can actually understand your material and master the works of lighting, color, and values. But anyways, back to that hand painting over here. So the first one is called Secret Sunshine number 1, and it's a oil on canvas. It is 73 by 91 centimeters, and this is a very gorgeous painting. And if I would suggest that this is probably one of the more realistic paintings that he did. His paintings definitely look a lot more lifelike than the colored pencils, and there are two reasons for that. One is because the values and the lightings that he used are very different from the color pencil versions and the oil painting versions, and also just generally paint tends to blend a lot more easier. Color pencils, you have to work a little bit more in order to get that lifelike feeling, kind of make sure that each of the tones are very subtle and they kind of flow in one another very, very nicely. So if we take a closer look at the painting of Secret Sunshine number 1, it has a really beautiful and interesting strong contrast because we have the sunlight shining on the tip of the fingers, and then the rest of the hands is in shadow mostly. And also another thing that probably made these hands also a little bit more lifelike is the toned background. So for example, if we were to switch over to one of the colored pencil versions, it does have a toned background though, but it doesn't have a similar effect because it's very light. That's number one. And then the other thing is that it seems very close to the skin tone, so there's not too much contrast with it. Although there are some areas that might look a little bit more lifelike though, but just how he wanted to show more of the hatching, cross hatchings on the hand to have a more art and kind of like a more like a drawing and sketch like feeling to it. That kind of destroyed the feeling of whether if it looked lifelike or not, because the moment that we see that, we're like, okay, we remind ourselves that okay, this is still a drawing and not an actual photograph or an actual picture of the hand. Let's take a look at the second painting that he did, which is called Secret Sunshine number 2, and this one is also the same size of canvas, on canvas, and this one is also really beautiful. And it's interesting with this one because he added a little bit more of a whimsical and kind of mythical and magical feeling, because the hand is actually disappearing at the bottom over here, fading away into the background. So this hand also has a closer to realistic because of the values, the colors, and nice strong contrast that you would naturally see in a very strong, bold, and powerful sunlight shining on the tip of the fingers. And it is really beautiful. So you did a great job getting those values correct, getting those colors correct, and it looks realistic. Now let's take a look at the last painting that he did, which is called, guess what? Secret Sunshine number 3. And also a similar size of canvas, oil and canvas. And this one is quite bleached out, I would think. I do prefer the other two paintings beforehand compared to this one. This one is very bleached out, and I can see how he kind of evolved in his art journey, and as he grows and evolves as an artist. As you can see, it's getting more bleached out. We got more neon colors, we got really like bright colors, less of the neutral and more natural colors that we would see on the hand, but definitely that would have a very big difference depending on if you were to see it in a different lighting. So generally, sunlight is a very strong, powerful, and contrasted type of lighting, so definitely we would have a lot more intense color, intense contrast, lots of high chroma in the colors. So that's one of the things that would happen. Okay, so now we kind of took a look at some of the oil paintings that WanJin Kim did. Let's take a closer look at some of the colored pencil drawings that he did on toned paper and see what the difference is and whether if it looks realistic and whether if it does not look realistic and why. Okay, let's take a look at this first one over here, and this is called Linked Hands, and it is colored pencils on beige toned paper, 27 by 39 centimeters. I love this artist. It's great when artists actually note down the name, the title of the piece of work, and also the dimensions, and also what materials they used for it, because it's so much easier for us art lovers and fans to understand what he did to create his beautiful pieces. So if we take a look at this one, definitely first thing is that, okay, I'm gonna say this at first, it does not look realistic. And I'll tell you why. Because the use of colors and tones has a very surreal look to it, and we see the hatching a lot more visibly because he wanted to show that cross-hatching and sketchy-like aspect into the drawing, which is very beautiful. So there's nothing wrong with whether if it looks like a drawing or whether it looks like super like hyper realistic, because it really depends on what the artist wanted. But I'm just kind of telling you what I see and whether if it looks realistic. And if you want to make something realistic, you want to probably do something opposite than WanJin Kim. So basically over here, the first thing is having that sketch-like and more rough filling in of colors and hatching. So that creates a very artistic and more sketch-like and drawing-like feeling to it. So it won't look hyper-realistic, it won't look like it's from a photo or from life. So the second thing that I wanted to mention is that the use of color and value. So the color over here, as you can see, WanJin Kim used a lot more high chromatic colors, so more intense colors. So we see a lot of the greens, a lot of the pinks, a lot of the reds, and also a mixture of like the blues and stuff, and you can actually visibly see, so they did not mix the colors so that they have a neutral tone to it, and that really makes it look not realistic because our skin tones are pretty subtle. We do have those colors depending on like what kind of lighting we see our hands in, and it really depends on the lighting on the hand and how we can actually copy that into our drawings and paintings. But if we kind of bring up the saturation and chroma of certain colors, they will look a lot more Play-Doh-y and more surreal, so they're not quite as lifelike and realistic though. But that does not mean that they are not three-dimensional in depth. So that's a little bit different because WanJin Kim definitely has a lot of depth and a lot of three-dimensional. He's got shadows, got everything there, but it just does not look lifelike. And the last thing that I want to kind of mention is that mostly for like this drawing that we're looking at, the toned background over here is quite light and it actually blends in a lot with the base tone of the hand. So with that, we don't have a distinct separation from the hand and the background, and also there is no shadows anywhere on the background, so that also kind of breaks off that hyper realistic and realistic feel, because usually if we had like a background and it's usually plain, we would have some kind of shadows or lighting, and if it was a backdrop that's a little bit further away, it would be a little bit more shadowed or at least somewhat a different color from the hand. Okay, now let's take another look at a different drawing over here. Okay, this one is a great example. So this is like an even over exaggerated version, and this one is a mixed medium painting. So this is called Hands Touching the Light, and it's a colored pencil, watercolor, acrylic on paper. And as you can see, this is like really high chroma, so you kind of see the intensity of the colors and a lot of blues, purples, reds, oranges, pinks, greens, and yellows, and there are like we bumped up the chroma to all the way to the top. It's like really bright, and with that it will create a very like surreal and like whimsical kind of feeling to it. It's not realistic, it's not lifelike, because usually our hands would not glow with these particular colors unless if we actually added some like paint or effects onto it, or like some lightings with specific colors. We could probably get something similar to that though, but it's just too intense that it doesn't look natural. Let's take another look at another drawing that he did over here, and this one compared to all the other one is probably the most lifelike out of them, and I will tell you guys the reason why. So this painting or drawing is called Joined Hands. It is colored pencil on brown tone paper, so slightly bit different. It is 24.7 by 34.7, and this is a drawing, and you can see this has a complete different feeling of the two drawings that we saw beforehand, and here are the reasons why. First thing, the hands have a lot more neutral tone to it, not as much of those intense colors. We do see varied of different colors though, but so much more neutral. We don't see random pinks popping out, we don't see random greens popping out. These are the greens is the one that really turns off the drawing to make it look like it was it's like not natural. And then like definitely like the like super like neon pink, like anything neon is like not a natural color that we would see in nature. So that's what makes it a lot more surreal, not as realistic, and more like magical and imaginary. So this one has a lot more neutral. We do see some of the blues though, but that's okay because we actually do see blues and slightly bit light pinks and reds because of our veins in our hands, and our skin is semi-translucent, so that's why we would see some of that. But yeah, those are the main things, and also like the values and the lightings aren't that intense, and then we do see a lot more balanced out values. And definitely with this darker background, as you can see, it's not the same tone as the skin, except for the arm parts where it kind of starts to fade and disappear. Like that's understandable that it's has an artistic look to it though, but compared to the other two drawings that we saw beforehand, this is so much more natural. We have a separation, a clear separation between the subject, which is the hand, and the background, and just generally color is a lot more subtle, more harmonious, less striking. Okay, let's take a look at one last one, and the reason why I wanted to kind of show this particular drawing with you guys is because this actually has shadow under the hand. So remember I mentioned a little bit earlier about like not having any shadows on the background, so we're going to take a look at examples to see why this one also does not look lifelike or hyper-realistic, and I will tell you why. So this drawing is called Hands Hugging from Behind. So basically this is colored pencils on beige tone paper, not brown tone paper, so it's a little bit different from the one before. It's 27 by 39 centimeters. It's available! Oh! You guys can buy this drawing. Collect original art. Okay, anyways, so this hand looks slightly bit more realistic thanks to the help of the shadow on the stomach, and we see the belly button too. But at the same time, the reason why it does not look lifelike and hyper realistic is because the use of color. So color is really important to tell whether if it looks lifelike or not, because the slight change in hue would, and also change in chroma, the intensity of the color, would really like make it look plasticky and Play-Doh-y. It looks like the person's made out of Play-Doh kind of thing. So some of the parts with more neutral colors, like more browns, more kind of, not exactly white though, but like more peachy colored, more pink colored. Green, we usually don't see as much of that, unless if you have a very interesting way of lighting your subject and your hand. So that's one of the main things, and definitely he still kept that hatching like aspect to the drawing. So the moment that we are able to see the strokes and all that stuff, and the artist did not try to somewhat blend it and kind of hide it to the point where we don't see those textures, that kind of makes it less realistic and lifelike. And I'm pretty sure you guys might be asking, okay, well, hand has some type of texture though too, right? But yes, we do have texture on our hands, but it does not look like the hatching that WanJin Kim did. His is more artistic. It's more the way how the forms are shaped, and he would follow the forms though, but not exactly the pattern that our skin would actually have for the texture. Okay, and that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this brand new episode of analyzing WanJin Kim's hand drawings and paintings, and we learned a little bit about what makes a hand artwork, whether if it's a painting or drawing, realistic and lifelike or not, is mainly because of the lighting, the values, how we execute and actually render and polish our drawings and paintings to make it look super real or more art-like and sketch-like, and also making sure that we have a distinct separation from the hand and whatever it is on or in front of. So basically the background. So having a distinct separation of knowing that the hand is the hand and the background is something else and not part of the hand. Okay, and that is it. So I hope you guys had fun with this video. I sure did have a lot of fun making this video and kind of sharing my thoughts about this particular artist and kind of analyzing to see if you would want a similar art style like WanJin Kim, or if you want to have a closer look at creating a more lifelike and hyper-realistic and realistic look to it. So if you want a more surreal and art-like, definitely take a closer look at WanJin Kim's art. His art is amazing, fantastic. Go follow him if you love his artworks. But if you do want more hyper-realistic and more realistic stuff, you probably want to do something a little bit different from WanJin Kim's art. But all in all, it really depends on what you want and what you want to add in your own artworks, and that's how we can kind of learn from specific artists and try to master that. So if you guys would like to kind of have more videos like these in the future, please leave a comment below of like any artists that you want me to kind of take a look at and analyze, and I'll be more than happy to kind of discover it together with you guys and have a little bit of a deeper dive and analyzing what the artist did and how we can actually achieve that kind of style or technique, so that we can help us understand how to achieve this kind of result. Here is a mini exercise for you guys this week. What I want you to do is basically trying to understand how to create a surrealistic drawing or painting of the hands like WanJin Kim, or trying to see if you can create something that's a little bit more realistic with more natural values, colors, and lighting. So basically what you would have to do here is, if you want something that's more imaginary, more surreal, something closer to WanJin Kim's hands, just remember those tips and advice that I mentioned that we discovered and unlocked today, which is the lighting, more intense lighting, more intense color, more high chromatic colors, and more colorful colors. So like super green, neon pink, reds, blues, oranges, like something a little bit more intense, and also having more hatching and strokes to give it a more sketchy and artistic look to it. And also you can probably blend in the background together with the hand. But if you want the opposite, you would want to do something where you make sure that you follow the values of the actual picture that you're drawing or painting, making sure that the shadows are correct, not too much intense colors, and also making sure that the background has a slight different tone than the hands. Yay! Okay, awesome. Thank you again so much for joining this brand new episode, and looking forward to sharing more analyzing artists' artworks and kind of learning, discovering, and just sharing my thoughts with you guys. And feel free to share your thoughts with me by commenting below. I would love to know what you probably discovered that I might have missed out on. So yeah, loving is sharing and caring. I shall see you guys next week, but take care, happy practicing, and stay creative. Bye!